Alrighty, folks, we are here for round three with an amazing contributor, one rental at a time. Somebody who's left some of the most thought-provoking comments on the channel. He is very gracious and kind when he disagrees with me, which I appreciate. Raul, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for being here. I'm having an amazing time. One thing I do want to talk about and give you your flowers is you're one of the rare people that I interact with that is fairly balanced. You can have an articulate conversation about stocks and a equally articulate and deep conversation about real estate. I cannot do that. I am 90% one and 10% the other. You're probably 55, 45, however you look at it. You're much more balanced. How the hell do you do it? Because you have a day job, right? And you can still, do you have a way to stretch the day? Because I don't understand how do you have 28 hours in the day or something?
I love to do this like a side hustle, like some people would call it. I always believe in having multiple sources of income. And so W2 is my one source of income. Stocks is my second, and real estate is my third. So I end up spending most of my weekends on either stocks or researching real estate.
So let me poke at that. So again, you're in tech as I was. You're probably spending 60, 70 hours a week, Monday through Friday. So that's it. So on the weekend, like, are we 4 hours, 8 hours? What are we doing on a Saturday, Sunday as far as, just keep learning? Because that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, and even weekdays, like even after my work is over, I tend to spend my evenings listening to your videos, looking at doing all of that. So I don't stop even after my work hours.
That's amazing.
And definitely I get to double down on the weekends. So I spend my time looking up the stocks that I already own and see where they stand, and then also see how my short-term rentals are doing, what attention they require.
So I have a curious. When you look at stocks, I think there are traders and investors. What are you?
I'm an investor. I do a little bit of trading. Most of my, like about 80% of what I have is for long-term investments.
Okay. All right.
We can talk a little bit about how I divide up my
sure, go for it.
Net worth, like roughly. So about 2/3 of it is in real estate and 1/3 is in stock market. And the 1/3 that I have in the stock market, when I was talking about like how I came about into investing and what my goals were, one of those goals was that I want to make sure that I have enough money kept aside for my kids' college. So my kids' college funds, I invested in the stocks, and that's that portion of that 1/3. The other portion is going to be the seed money for my next real estate investment. So as I'm building equity for my next investment, I want it to still work. So I end up investing it in the stock market. And so and that gives me a little bit less of a pressure that my money is not working, because I know it is working somewhere else.
There you go. Well, you've talked about kids a couple of different times. Do you have kids today, or is this a future kid?
I have 2 kids, and my oldest son is in high school right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he's very interested in this financial journey himself. So nice. He started reffing as in soccer games because he himself is a soccer player. So last year he made about $7,000.
Nice.
And he invested 1,000 of that in the stock market. And one day he wants to follow the ORAT rule and get into house hacking. So I've already on that path. So that's what actually got me into YouTube and commenting on your videos, because I was trying to collect this information, not just mine, but for the wealth of information that you and others provide, so I can pass it along to him.
That's amazing. So that's your oldest son. What about your next child?
My younger one is in middle school right now. Too young to think about stocks.
That's okay. I was just trying to get the range. So it's really interesting. You were 18 when your father passed. You share that in video number 1. And I can understand how that would be a pivotal event. And what I mean by that is you've had this purpose to always have funds for your kids' college.
Yeah.
Since day one, and you mentioned that in the first video. I do want to throw this idea out there, which I've seen folks do, and it's what Olivia and I did, is we actually decided to pick a real estate property and say, but get this when she was young, this is going to be yours. Because again, that's a pretty interesting way to go, because, that's, 15 years later, You're halfway through the term. You probably had some appreciation. They could sell it, keep it, mortgage it, whatever. What do you think of that idea in general?
It absolutely works. Mike, when I put comments on your videos and I listen to your stuff, I feel like whenever there were forks in the road, you went left and I went right.
Yeah.
But we still went around the problem. We went through it.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't just sit down on our ass. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it absolutely works even with real estate. I find that with stocks, it's more liquid. So if I had to sell and sell a portion of it, I don't have to do with real estate. I don't know how you plan to take the money out for the college. Is it going to be like a HELOC or I'm
well,
not sure.
It would be transferred to her, so she gets to decide. Does she want to sell it, keep it, cash flow it? It's basically, do you want to go get a student loan for 4 years and then pay it off? Now, my daughter's obviously 31. We've already been through this, but I think it's an interesting riddle, right? If you have a 1, 2, 3-year-old, do you get a rental and give it to them on their 18th birthday, saying, "Hey, here you go, your choice, what you want to do with this"?
That's a great idea. I didn't think of it, honestly. I thought of like having liquid assets, and that's the path I followed.
Yeah, it's just an interesting idea. And again, there's no, like you already say, left or right. It's no right answer. It just keep going. I think a lot of people get to a fork in the road and sit down. Yeah. You're at a fork in the road. What I hear you doing, Rahul, is you collect information and then you decide. And you also don't wait for perfect information. There's no such thing. You educate a little bit, like that S curve we talked about. You get out of the, whatever, and you just move. That's greatly appreciated. That's pretty strong.
Thank you.
And then what about real estate? I mean, because I know real estate has seasons, right? Sometimes they're easier, sometimes they're harder. The stock market obviously has bull and bear markets. Do you ever go heavier? Like today you're 45-55 split, whatever it is, 60-30. Do you ever rotate based on, hey, this one's now a bear market that's going to get more information or more dollars or not? Or are you just always dollar cost averaging?
So I mentioned to you that I don't dollar cost average. I try to time the market using technical analysis. Okay. So what I end up doing is I look at, for a very simple example, is if we had a very long bull run in the stock market and I invested quite a bit in the tech sector, and that had a very good amount of returns over 10 years. And then in 2022, beginning in January, I saw it dip below the moving averages and there were a lot of signs of selling. So I took the money out. But when I sell my tech stocks, then I started going into other things. Like I started going into gold and gold miners. I went into oil stocks. So I always stay invested like that.
Okay.
I consider myself a little bit of an advanced trade investor. And so this is not something I recommend to everybody. But if you are into like a tech sector like QQQ and you see it moving down, there are things called SQQQ, which goes in the opposite or the inverse of the QQQ. Right. So when the market is going down, you can still benefit if you like took some of the money out of QQQ and moved it to SQQ. So that's how I ended up even being positive in 2022.
So I'm curious what you see in the market today. Obviously, we're recording this on Sunday, June 11th, Friday, June 9th. The stock market, the S&P here in this example, closed at 4298.62, right on the kind of 4,300, which is apparently a technical level. Again, my buddy Dan talks about this. I'm definitely out of my depths here, so forgive me if I say something stupid. But what are you thinking about this 4,300 level? Is it a line in the sand that maybe causes a big reversal back, or if we break through, is it off to the races? What do you see in the technicals?
So the way I look at it is that it is hitting one of the very strong resistance points right now, like Dan covered, which I completely agree with. I also left comments in there saying that when I look at Apple, Microsoft, and all these other tech companies, NVIDIA actually has broken through it. So NVIDIA is not a good example of what I was going to just talk about. But like Apple, Microsoft, and others are. So when you hit this type of resistance levels, it can go down. And when it turns down, then you don't know how much lower it can go, because then you start looking for the next support level. So it's already hitting a resistance level. But if it breaks through the resistance level, that's a very strong buy signal. So we are at this pivotal point right now. If it punches through this resistance level, then it means there's a lot more that it can go at.
A place to run.
Yeah, but at this time, like again, in some of the comments I left behind, If you've already had this run up since say October of last year, there's been like I think Nasdaq is up 30% or something like that. If you've got this, this is the time you would probably take some of the chips off the table,
right,
and then watch whether it is going to break through or fall down. And if it breaks through, then it's like your green signal. Go ahead, invest even more.
Yeah, I think the peak, historical peak's like 48.80 something, I think. Do you, when you look at the technical level, and if you don't want to say, it's totally cool, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you think there's a chance we have hit an all-time high this year, or do you think that's poppycock?
I'm just pulling up the chart in front of me right now.
I like it. I like it. That's good. This year.
Yeah, so there is definitely a possibility, but at this point, it is already hitting a big resistance point, like I said. So it needs to at least pull back a little bit more before I can have a little bit more confidence in saying that. So what happens is that if you hit a resistance level, it needs to go down and test the support. And once it tests the support, if it turns back on, that's another bullish sign.
Okay.
If it also breaks the resistance level, that's another bullish sign. So if it breaks the resistance level, then it can absolutely go and reach the peaks. So if you just look at technicals, it is a possibility, but you know.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because on Tuesday we get something that I've been waiting 3 to 6 weeks for, and that is the CPI headline print. Last reading was 4.9. I think this reading on Tuesday will be 4.3 or better. I just checked this morning. People are calling 4.1. I think that happens. Then we get the meeting on Wednesday where Jerome Powell officially pauses, and I think pauses all year. Then he has his press conference where he's going to say dumb things like we'll be data dependent and blah, blah, blah. I think people are going to price that in as a pause the rest of the year. That could be enough macro stuff to take it higher, or do you think the market's already priced all that in?
You know, you're talking about some very interesting things. So when you are an investor, I would probably categorize people into two very large buckets.
Sure.
One is fundamental analysis and the other is technical analysis. All these factors like you are describing, and also other things that people talk about, like Taylor talks about PE ratios and things like that, that falls under fundamental analysis. Awesome. I trade based on technicals and not on fundamentals.
Yeah, you and Dan both. Yes.
So for me, it doesn't matter as much about what they're doing. I just trade based on what the charts are telling me. And what the charts are telling me is that if we were to hit 4,800, it is a possibility if we punch through this resistance level and keep going, but it won't happen before October. And so there are two lines that are hitting at 4,800 at October, and that's probably going to be the another very strong resistance levels, and it will have to drop from there.
So I just want to make sure a summary, because after our conversation, I actually do get Dan Bird up next. So I'm going to make sure I'm a little bit more educated. So again, we're at 4,300, which is a resistant level. There are some fundamental things that could be the reason things break, but then the next big resistance is 4,800. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Like those are the big ones. There's some smaller ones in between, but yeah.
Okay, very cool. Well, I'm going to sound a lot more intelligent in my conversation with Dan, so thank you. Rahul, you have a couple of amazing short-term rentals. What are those sites? Because I know people want to check them out.
The one in the Big Island is called the Big Island Beach House, easy to remember. And the one in Maui is also easy to remember, the MauiRental.com.
Awesome, buddy. And do me a favor, keep commenting, keep telling me where I'm wrong or misguided. I appreciate it. I'm learning with your comments, so please do not stop. And please come back sometime. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for replying to all my comments too.
You got it.